welcome to our time, and I do apologise, but Malcolm, are you all right there?
Fine, thanks.
Is there a reason for this, Malcolm?
Yes, because we've got a special guest.
Yes, we do have a special guest. Cassandra Zaina is here.
Is that enough?
Yes,
I think that you've done a great job.
Oh, thank you very much.
I'm impressed, Malcolm.
Thank you very much.
Welcome to the program again.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Your ball was fantastic.
Oh, good. I'm glad.
Before Christmas last year, we both got...
I got a little spiky massage ball.
Yeah, pink one.
Absolutely.
And I've used that. This is just to help your spine realign itself when you get a headache or feel a bit uncomfortable, and it really works.
That's great. I know, and it's so easy, isn't it?
It is. It's just finding a spare patch of wall in the house.
Yep.
And up and down and up and down. It's wonderful.
That's fantastic. I'm glad that you've used it.
Yeah, I really have.
Great.
We're not here to talk about the toys, though, today. We don't have any toys with us, but we're here to talk about, no matter what age you are, how important it is to actually exercise still. Yeah, absolutely. If you are able, obviously.
That's right. So really we're here to sort of talk about how to stay healthy as you're getting older and what we can do. But essentially it's exactly the same as any time throughout your life. So the most important thing is to move as much as you can. And as we like to say, motion is lotion. Motion is lotion. And Malcolm does that beautifully, as we've seen today.
And we can do that sitting down. If you can't get up and jog around the block, there are things that you can do in your home.
You can get here and you can do.
Yes, it's attractive.
You can do that, absolutely, and that's quite high level. So some people might not be up to that.
That was low level.
No, it's actually quite hard. But even just marching on the spot, or you might have no weight at all in your hands and be lifting your hands up and forward and out to the side. 2 cans of baked beans. Exactly, make it hard with a little bit of weight, like cans of baked beans or anything that you might have handy, little container of cream, etc. Water bottle, even just a water bottle, and you can half fill it or gradually fill it.
There is in a water bottle.
Absolutely, yeah, it's quite surprising. So a little bit goes a long way. And the other really important thing that we do know now, and the research is coming through thick and fast, is that sitting is the new smoking, and it doesn't matter at what age you are. We really want to get up and move as much as we can. So the research shows that we should get up. That's right. And the research shows that even just getting up and moving about, now we've got all this space in our abdominal area.
Oh, I wish I had
our
space.
Lungs have got room to expand. You've got plenty of space there. So the lungs have got room to expand, so you're bringing in more oxygen to nourish your muscles and your joints. So that's very important.
Truth is, though, I actually find it easy when I'm working to stand.
Right, yes.
It's not so easy to type. Well, it is. It actually is. Because I actually do that too. But I don't know why. I just thought it was because I was getting older. And it was easier to stand up.
It takes a lot of load off your low back as well. So, people who have a low back or some hip problems might find that sitting really isn't where they're most comfortable. And in fact, they'd rather be standing up. And that's why now you see those sit-to-stand desks. They'll raise the whole desk up. So
that's
people can move in between.
Sit-to-stand desks.
And the ball is recommended that you sit on instead of sitting in a chair?
You can sit on a ball. I tend to find with people that after about 10 minutes, they might go into a bit of a slouch position. So you might have even seen those balls that have got a little backrest on them.
Right. Just to keep...
exactly. So that then you've got that support in that natural curve.
It's because our spine has that curve.
That's right. So you've got that little sort of forward curve in the low back. So that sort of nestles in there to support you and stop that slouch. So any time that we slouch, it's going to inhibit our lung expansion. It's also, squishing down our abdominal contents and intestines.
And is it also... quite often when we're either tired or even if you're depressed, your body goes into like the depressed state.
Absolutely.
And I quite often feel if I am tired, you start feeling you're doing that, but you actually reinvigorate yourself just by straightening your spine and getting your shoulders back.
Absolutely. And so you're getting all that extra oxygen coming in, which immediately goes to your brain, as well as the rest of your body. So that does make quite a big difference.
And also how important it is to understand your breathing and to make sure that you're breathing properly. This is what I do in Pilates.
Absolutely.
That we start off with the breathing exercise because that's so important to fill your lungs with the oxygen. But also the other thing that I did have been told is in the mornings to stand on one leg, to find your balance.
Absolutely.
And just to sit and just like that.
Well, but you, and also, you know, you're gliding around on your roller skates and, you know, turning, so you're probably going to be quite proficient because you practice on an unstable base. You do lose it quickly. We all lose it quickly.
And I haven't skated for probably 3 or 4 months.
Wow.
And just a week ago, because I was showing somebody else how to roller skate, as you do, I put them on and I thought, oh, hello, excuse me, my balance is all over the place.
Yes.
I got it back, but it's like a muscle memory thing. Your body's got to remember how to do it.
And it's a joint memory thing too. And people with sprained ankles, so if they don't rehab themselves and practice standing on one leg, they've got a very high chance of actually re-spraining their ankle because the body, it hasn't learnt how to work out where it is in space. So what happens is that as you start to go over, it takes a long time for that message to get to your brain to say, we're going over, do something about it.
Well, funny you should say that. Just the other night, I must have turned my foot, not my ankle, my foot.
Yes, yep.
And I didn't realise I'd done it, but about, well, I don't know when I did it, to be honest, but shortly after, at some point, I felt pain in my foot and it's been bothering me ever since. And I thought, how the earth did I do that? Like how common and stupid is something like that?
Something little, exactly.
Something little.
But you do sort of have that little
going
sprain.
up and down some stairs, and I think I just must have landed
twisted,
badly.
Yeah, and you're right. You know, it can come up in sort of another day, another day's time. You sort of get this delayed onset.
Well, because you don't remember how you did it.
That's exactly right. Yeah,
and the danger is you might do it again in the same place.
And then you actually feel it once the pain chemicals and the inflammatory chemicals pull. So yeah, the most important thing I think is for people to find what they like to do. So. For instance, you know, some people might like to go for a walk, other people might like to swim, other people might like to just do some gentle exercise. I actually just finished a 5-day yoga retreat and I was the youngest person there. There were 20 people on the course and we had people up to about, well, the early 70s.
I was just saying before, I saw a program recently where a 93-year-old lady was still teaching yoga and she looked fantastic. The things she could do with her body was just
I have to say, the women in that age bracket were fantastic. The 2 men who were there were a bit younger. They were sort of 50s and around sort of, you know, early 50s, late 50s, and they were really good too. Everyone was great, and that form of yoga is such that you can use various props and things like that. But I have to say that there was one lady who was about 70 and she was so much better at doing headstands than I was. I was just blown away. So, you know, depends on what you like.
But again,
really.
that is a muscle memory thing, isn't it? Because you've learnt to do that and you just do it.
And this is
like
something,
ballet dancers.
That's right, and this is what I've just started to do.
What are you doing now?
Bit of a plie, please.
Extend bar, and it's ballet and it's all plies and it's just constant moving. But honestly, my arms thought they were going to drop off. Never used my...
It's surprising how tiring it is, and you have a dance background, so even with your muscle memory, you know, it is tiring initially when you get back into it. But I mean, that might be great if you want to sort of show some people that exercise, because that's a great one to do while the kettle's boiling. And a bit of a plie.
No, but also just the balance thing too.
Yes.
Because that was that's all part of it too. And you're against the bar and you're doing things with just bending, which is a great thing that you can do
that's what I've got problems
against
with
your
now.
bench top, or your table or the back of a chair.
Exactly. And that's really important because some days we're more steady than others. So you've just got that there as a security
I find it really
blanket.
good while the kettle's boiling in the morning just to hang on to the bench top, because I've got, you know, there's a sink there and a bench top there. I just hang on there and either do some stretchy back bends that way or some
that's a good stretch too.
Just to stretch the back of your legs. But also it's, but as you said, find something that you are comfortable with.
And as you say, you can do your forward plies or you can go out wide and do the, you know, your side plies. You can do the lovely upper back shoulder stretches on your kitchen bench. So really easy things to do at home.
Messing about before, but you can literally do
a little modified
push-up on a chair like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're using all of your big muscle groups, you know. So again, yes, kitchen bench.
Doesn't have to be on the floor. You don't have to get down to have to get up again.
Absolutely, yeah. And you work all those groups. So you know your abdominal muscles, your leg muscles, the back of the shoulder muscles. So yeah, they're all very effective.
Shall we sit down? Sure. I was just going to say too, we were talking about how important it is to drink a lot of water.
Yes,
that's something.
That's right, yeah. So, you know, we all do struggle to drink water, but often as people get older, they drink less water. And it essentially has the effect where it almost dries up the joints a little bit. So you're really losing that joint lubrication, and also dries up the muscles. So they become a bit dry and not as flexible and pliable. So really is important to keep up your water intake.
This is because our bodies are so much water?
That's right, exactly.
And other things that we hear are very good for you, like coconut oil, flaxseed oils, you know, all of those things.
Exactly.
So,
and I mean, there's a lot of research now behind fish oil that taken in high doses, it acts as an anti-inflammatory, so it is very good for arthritis.
I take that every day.
Great.
I've got a bursa in this shoulder, I've had injections and all of that nonsense that you go through at this point of your life. And I got back onto fish oil, and it's controlling it. It's not fixed it, but it's not as painful. Helping to settle it down.
Yeah. And I think the other benefit is that it's, you know, it also helps to reduce blood pressure. You know, it's really good for your cardiovascular system, your brain, your heart, your skin. So there are those benefits. Just like exercise, you know, that's not only good for your body, it also releases a lot of endorphins that really.
My good friend, who's 93 years old, starts every day with leg raises before she rolls out of bed.
Perfect.
She does her leg raises up and down, then she tosses her legs over the bed.
Excellent.
We've run out of time.
Okay.
We always love seeing you, and thank you for coming in, and demonstrations were very good.
Oh,
hang on, my plie, sorry.
Oh,
no, well, maybe we'll be back in a minute.
Thank you.
We'll be back soon.
Thank you.
It's great to see you again.
Thank you for having me.
And welcome back to Our Time. You know, it's interesting, but our histories are lost in generally only about one generation after we disappear and shuffle off this mortal coil. But if we've left evidence of our lives, it can be very interesting for those who come after us, particularly family. And our next guest on Our Time is Ludwig Leydig, who in fact found letters of his mother's and has turned them into this book called Bombshell. Welcome, Ludwig.
Thank you, Malcolm.
Did you just find all these letters in a box in the attic type thing?
They were in a trunk, and I found them when I was a child. I didn't understand them. Mum didn't mind if I rummaged through her things. They were very neatly in a folder. There were about 300 of them in this one particular folder, and there were many others as well. I saw all sorts of things in there. And it wasn't really until Mum died 17 years ago that I had another good look at them. It was a program that I happened to see on YouTube where my mother suddenly appeared. It was in connection.
Must have been a bit of a shock.
I did.
You're sitting in a public library and suddenly there's your mother on the screen. Because
I'd looked up Dr. Ludwig Roselius, that was her uncle by marriage. Her brother had married one of his daughters, and I occasionally would be interested in that because this man was a huge global tycoon.
This is actually the man we're talking about.
Yes, well, he was worshipped by my mother, I must say, and his pictures were always on the wall, and my father had a tiny little picture in the corner somewhere. So he always cast a shadow over the family.
Reading the book, though, he was obviously a man that history has somewhat forgotten. And one of the things he actually invented was decaffeinated coffee.
Yes.
And then found the use for the caffeine. But look, let's just go a step further back because, first of all, the lady we're talking about, your mum, this is her, isn't it?
That's correct, yes.
Was it this is she? I'm never quite sure. What's interesting about her is that, of course, she was born in Germany, brought up, went through the Second World War, met Hitler on many occasions.
Correct.
Was the confident and constant companion to the gentleman we just saw, and was instrumental in many of his undertakings, particularly in the world of art.
Yes, well, they were the three things: coffee, art, and then aircraft.
Oh yes, well, while we're looking at things in close-up, just explain why we have this little aircraft sitting on top of the glass here.
That's a fighter plane that was finally ready in August of 1941.
Slightly bigger than the one that we're showing you.
It was actually better than the Spitfire Mark V because it had fuel injection, whereas the Spitfire Mark V still had the old carburettor engines. But the later models, once the the Brits got one of those, it was shot down, and they immediately converted to the newer model. The Spitfire Mark 9 was in fact superior to this one. But for about 2 years, they were the best fighter plane in Europe. Even the American pilots acknowledge that. I have the DVDs, and the pilots say they were better than the Messerschmitt.
Okay, we're probably confusing everybody because we've talked about so many things all in one big parcel. But in fact, I guess historically, the book that you have written is really following your mother's career through the early part of her life and then more particularly through the war. Correct. The letters that she wrote to family and the responses from family, and also from the gentleman who she looked after.
Yes.
The influences she had both with him and his company. And his company was inexplicably joined with places all over the world, which made a very interesting point that he was German. Correct. He wanted Germany to win the war.
And Hitler to lose.
And yes, and Hitler to lose. That's the interesting point.
He was more of an American than a German.
Well, he had so many interests,
he was a global tycoon.
He was also one of the first people who understood that propaganda, which we now call TV commercials and print media commercials, he actually invented that.
That's where he got his honorary doctorate. He was a good friend of the Kaiser, even escorting the Kaiser across after the German Revolution to Holland. These are all things that are virtually unknown about this man.
Yes, reading the book, my eyes were open in many ways. Plus the fact, and we must get to why you wrote it, but plus the fact that in a lot of the letters that are going backwards and forwards between family and your mother, and his family and your mother, they mention the inconvenience of the war, and they mention that their apartments were bombed or roofless, or they couldn't get the food, or the transport was difficult. But they actually didn't talk about the war.
That's very interesting. I found the same. I think what's happened here is that due to the travels that my mother undertook with Dr. Azelius, they were in all sorts of places of the world, right until 1939, they were in Indonesia, for example, very close to Australia.
Well, important to also say that they took trains across the Mediterranean from Venice, then took trains right down to the bottom of South Africa.
That's correct.
And travelled through all of the different countries. And also the times of those, when it was okay to shoot wild animals and things for sport.
It was acceptable.
It was very acceptable. But your mother didn't care for that.
Well, no, and in fact that shows her freedom-loving spirit. She actually stopped him from shooting a zebra.
A zebra, yes. Exactly.
And he listened to her. Of course, he was quite dependent on my mother.
He lost
there was
a
a problem. He'd lost the leg. It was festering. It was quite difficult for my mother. She actually had to apply leeches to his leg quite often. My brother actually told me that story recently. I haven't even got that in the book.
No, I was going to say, I didn't read that in the book.
And then even when he was dying, he would close to his death in May '43, he would look as though he was dying, and then he'd recover, and then they travelled to Paris again, and he opened a Focke-Wulf. This particular company was called Focke-Wulf, opened a clubhouse for the French workers in the Bois de Boulogne. This is unbelievable. 2 months before he died.
And it was clear that without your mum, he would not have been able to do any of the things, particularly in that 8-year period.
Yes, and he was deteriorating, obviously. He had all sorts of other illnesses. I spoke to a doctor friend of mine. He probably had malaria because he visited a lot of those countries for his coffee. And actually, going back to the coffee, that was 1906. He immediately established himself in Park Avenue, New York in 1908. And that's where I feel there are no records here, by the way. There is a son still alive in Switzerland, but he won't open the records. They've been trying to get, a bit like trying to get to Henry Ford's records. It's also impossible. But what happened was an American man called Colonel Sosthenes Ben was the second largest shareholder of this company.
Yes, and this crossover between the Americans and the Germans prior to America going into the Second World War.
And that was the reason
they were inexplicably linked in many ways, weren't they? It's extraordinary because that's happened again in the current situation that we have. But look, we've just got to explain why why you ended up writing the book.
Right. I had a heart problem about 5 years ago. I retired and I had very little to do. And then after I happened to see my mother on this documentary, I thought, well, it's time for me to write the second story, because in the documentary, my cousin appears for about 15 minutes, and she said that Dr. Roselius virtually receded out of public life. Well, that's just not correct.
Yes.
She was only a little girl of 4
and
at the time.
your mother had all the evidence.
And she had all the evidence. I've got all the letters now. The most important ones are in the bank and the rest are in a safe place, because I felt that this story was definitely worth putting down. If I hadn't done it, I'm sure nobody would have been lost.
It's the film.
I think
because we have one perception of what happened during the Second World War, but we only have our version of the history. And although clearly Hitler was very crazy towards the end, there was a period of time in his
there were many
tenure, if you like.
At the beginning, many people did follow him, and Dr. Roselius was one of them. But in 1942, there is a Bremen historian called Dieter Fliegensdorfer, and I have the reference. It's going into a revised edition of this book. It hasn't. It's only recently that I found it. That he was actually in discussions with Girdler. Now, Girdler was the man responsible for organising the July 44 plot on Hitler. So in 42, Roselius and others were already very unhappy with Hitler, and they wanted to get him out.
Yes, and the accounts of your mother meeting Hitler are quite interesting, but you'll have to read the book to find out more about that. We'll leave the information as to where people can find this book. I haven't finished yet, that's where I'm up to in the book. We'll leave the information. So I'm interested to read the rest on our website, and you can find out a little bit more about the book, about this gentleman and his mum and the interesting life that they had during this period of time. What's important, though, is she came to live right here in Adelaide, didn't she?
Yes.
And you were only one when you came to South Australia. So there might be another story about you here.
Well,
who knows?
I don't know. My next big thing is I'm going to London in a month's time for the London Book Fair, and I'm hoping to find perhaps even a movie agent, because I think this story would make a fantastic
scriptwriter
film.
You need first, because there's the basis for it. Look, it's been fantastic to meet you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much,
for
Malcolm.
sharing your mum's story and the book with us.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Do you feel fit?
I'm exercising now. No, but you know, I actually do that quite often.
Do you?
Yeah.
Is that comfy?
Well, you know, when you
take a lot of energy.
You know, people say my bum's gone to sleep.
Oh.
And that wakes it up.
Okay.
Hey, all the episodes that we're making will eventually, well, probably not all of them, only the ones with me, will go up to YouTube very soon. And you can find out about that at our Facebook site or on our
website.
Which means, yes,
the
interweb.
Is it?
As some people still like to call it, who haven't quite got the message.
Look, you know, we do post it, so if you are on Facebook, you'll see all the details there. And
if we talk about anything on the program that you might need to connect, like Ludwig's book, for example, as to where you can get that.
Interesting.
And
Cassandra, and
we should put
tips
up
on exercise.
Malcolm's exercises.
No, don't think so.
It's been lovely having your company once again, this time on Our Time. So until next time on Our Time,
take care. And we hope to see you next time on Our Time.
And keep yourself nice till then. Bye.
Bye.